Right then guys, it's PSL here with the second episode in what is effectively my reverse grid race series on F1 2017. Now last time out we saw Esteban Ocon win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix after poor strategical decisions took Van Dorn and Verline out of the running, and an engine failure took Marcus Ericsson out of the race whilst he was leading it. And what you're technically watching here is the qualifying for the second round of the season, the British Grand Prix. Don't worry, I am fully aware that it is only a black screen, and that's a shame because my capture card, for some mysterious reason, only decided to record the sound, which you can hear, but not the visuals. It's only ever done this once before, and that time it did it, we missed out on a belter of a race with the classic cars around Suzuka Short. And that would have been one of the strangest and maddest races on the channel, but the recording failed and instead you got a much less interesting race, which is a shame. But anyway, back on topic. The recording issue, I have no idea why it happened back then with the Classic Cars race, and I have no idea why it happened here, but this issue, it only affects this particular recording session, so qualifying and the start of the 50% race. So, because you can't see the qualifying results, I mocked up this table which shows the qualifying results and the points they scored under this championships point system. So in the qualifying session held at Silverstone, Lewis Hamilton took pole position at his home race with Sebastian Vettel in second. Bottas beat his fellow countryman of Raikkonen to take third, and Sergio Perez did well to split the two Red Bull drivers and take sixth. Then you find Hülkenberg, Ocon, Massa and myself, who all scored quite a few points in qualifying despite not starting that high up. I mean, I qualified in the bottom half of the grid and still got 5 points under this point system, but that's 5 more than my teammate Daniel Kvyat, who couldn't even get inside the top 15. So that means he's lost out to Grosjean, Palmer, Magnussen, and most embarrassingly, especially as this is a power circuit, Fernando Alonso, who took 15th and with it a single point. During the standard 50% distance race, I got off to a good start and made up a few places, which I'm sure you can imagine with your mind's eye, and with the audio I was able to record. Then onto a part of the race for which I do have footage, and that is after myself and many of the others came into the pits, we had to pass those who hadn't stopped yet, such as Palmer and the two Saubers. I was able to do that just fine, but Max Verstappen wasn't. I was battling with Verstappen for most of the race, and I was just ahead of him at the time. So a few seconds after I passed Ericsson, Verstappen tried to do just that through Maggots and Beckett's, but the Sauber driver came off badly from that battle and was hit into a spin. Whilst I'm sure that was a pretty scary moment for Ericsson, the incident's impact was ultimately minor. But despite that, the safety car was still brought out for some reason. Well, ironically, the safety car quickly became the biggest danger on circuit, taking off Grosjean's front wing just ahead of me and taking Max Verstappen out of the race entirely. You could argue that that was karma biting back at Verstappen, but honestly, I think it was just a perfect storm of bad decisions that ultimately culminated in his retirement. After the safety car came in, I was in 6th. Just behind Perez and just ahead of Bottas, but Bottas had pitted for a second time and was on new soft tyres. Myself and almost everyone ahead of me was still out on old mediums, with the exception of Hamilton, who had made the same strategical move as his teammate. Anyway, in order not to waste time fighting a battle I'd inevitably lose with Bottas, I let him through. Lance Stroll was the second driver to retire from the race, meaning Alonso got a face full of engine smoke, not from his own car for a change. That should have been the end of the race for me, but luckily Kimi Raikkonen was having to nurse some car troubles, which meant I overtook him down the hangar straight for 6th place. On the final few laps, Lewis Hamilton made his extra pit stop work, as he passed Sebastian Vettel around the outside of Stowe to take the lead of the British Grand Prix. At the very end of the race, rain started falling, which allowed me to catch up to Perez, but it was too little too late, and in the end, the British fans saw their homegrown hero win the British Grand Prix, with Sebastian Vettel in 2nd and Valtteri Bottas in 3rd. Ricciardo and Perez moved up 1 place from their qualifying position due to Raikkonen's issues. Raikkonen dropped 6 seconds behind me, but strangely still wasn't overtaken by Kevin Magnussen. All of that means that the Drivers' Championship now looks like this. I won't go through all of the standings, but I will say that there are a few shock results, with Palmer in 9th and Fernando Alonso in 12th. And in fact, Fernando Alonso only has 3 points less than Max Verstappen. But of course, Fernando Alonso was helped out massively due to his podium finish during the reverse grid race in Abu Dhabi. Speaking of which, it's time to find out what happened when we ran a 25% distance race at Silverstone, where the starting grid is a reverse of these championship results. So then, here we are on the starting grid, and as you can see, the sun is setting in Silverstone. I think a bit of cloud in the sky, but still, the sun is setting, and it is, generally speaking, quite a beautiful evening here in Silverstone. There is Lewis Hamilton, who so far has dominated the British Grand Prix. Pole position, he won the standard 50% race, and in fact, last time we did a reverse grid race in Abu Dhabi, he finished 4th, was only just beaten by Fernando Alonso, so Hamilton definitely one to watch out for, especially as he has been in top form in Silverstone. One-stop strategy, super soft. Strategy shouldn't play too much of a factor. They generally don't in 25% races. There's not as much flex as there is, obviously, in a 50% race or a 100% distance race. So I'll be starting in 13th place. Julian Palmer in 12th, just ahead of me, and Sergio Perez in 14th, just behind me. Now, Palmer did incredibly well in Abu Dhabi in the reverse grid race, but of course, because he did well there, he scored a lot of points, and that means he moved up the championship. So now, because he's higher up in the championship or higher up in the championship, he has to start further back in the races. It's kind of a catch-22. But anyway, the lights are coming on for the reverse grid race around Silverstone. And it's underway, and Julian Palmer's start is fairly decent, so is Kevin Magnussen's. But Max Verstappen's start really isn't good, and Palmer might pass him down the inside heading into Abbey. No, he's backed out of that, and no, he's held us off as a result. But I think we're going to move to the right hand side. There you go, later on the brakes, but Perez has got the same idea, but Perez went even more to the right hand side, broke even later, and has made up even more places. And there you go, Magnussen is going to repass me down the inside. So I may have passed Julian Palmer, but I'm still in 13th place thanks to Perez. Well, Perez's move was very audacious, and we'll see a replay of that in just a second. But I think that's all the excitement done for the time being. I'm gonna see if I can make a move around the outside of Luffield, but it's just not gonna happen, is it? No, it's not. That would have been a wonderful move had that happened, but no, that was just not gonna happen. But of course, 13 laps left to go. We've got Sauber's, McLaren's at the front, so there's still a lot of time, a lot of opportunity to make up positions. So here we are with Sergio Perez, down the inside of Abbey. There's me to the left. Now, I move to the right-hand side. By doing that, Perez kind of has to go to the right-hand side. And there you go, there's just tons of space. So I was kind of boxed in a bit by Perez, but, yeah, Perez incredibly late on the brakes, and, yeah, just generally speaking, actually quite a decent start from Perez. I mean, he started the race behind me, and he's now ahead of me, and there's a car gap, actually. Now, let's have a look at the front. So we got Lance Stroll, who's starting on the second row of the grid, because Lance Stroll, his season so far has been incredibly poor, but, well, it's taken an upturn because he's moved up to second place already, having passed Pascal Wehrlein, and I think we got Felipe Massa in the background having passed a McLaren. There you go. So it's Sauber Williams, and well, that's the thing is, of course, you know, if a team isn't doing especially well, or a driver isn't doing especially well in the championship, then the reverse grid race, if they're low down in the championship, the reverse grid race will give them the perfect opportunity to score lots of points because they'll start further up. So Felipe Massa, who spun out of the previous Grand Prix, where he didn't spin out, he was still in contention, but he spun and was in last place, is starting very high up the grid. We saw him there just past Pascal Wehrlein. Now, we all know what's going to happen here. It's, well, I mean, we're going down the hangar straight, and it's two Mercedes-powered Williams, up against a 2016 Ferrari-engined Sauber. And Lance Stroll, regardless of what you think of Lance Stroll, that was an inevitable move. Lance Stroll is leading the British Grand Prix, locking up there, but there you go. So he is in first place. Marcus Ericsson in second, Felipe Massa in third, but we know Massa, it's just a matter of time before he gets past, and in fact I think he's going to do it already. Inside into Abbey, That's a brave move, but Massa just kept his foot in it there. And there you go, Massa, even he has actually locked up a front right wheel, but there you go. That is a Williams 1-2 in Britain, which is a wonderful story in this reverse grid race, but it's still early days. But the Williams up towards the front, you would assume that that's... well, you would assume that they are generally going to be safe there. And coming up towards the end of the first lap, Lance Stroll having set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, having taken the lead of the Grand Prix all within one lap. All of that action, the Williams moved up to first and second within a lap. That's how much quicker they are than the Saubers, especially around a power circuit like this. Later on the brakes, I think we are about to give Perez a taste of his own medicine here. Well, it's going to be close. We've got to leave in the space, of course. We can't just close him off, but he's still not there. So, clean acceleration out to the corner. And there you go. We have passed a Mercedes-powered car there. And up ahead, we have got the Honda-powered McLaren of Fernando Alonso. And, of course, the catch-22 with this championship. Alonso, he's in a slow car, but he did well at the previous reverse grid race, which means he's got to start fairly high up. In fact, actually, Fernando Alonso repassing me because I messed up the exit of Luffield. And, well, here we go. I've got to now try and make a move into Copse. That just... no, I backed out of that. But Fernando Alonso incredibly slow off the exit there. And I tell you what, lucky not to take myself out as I cut in front of Fernando Alonso, and Sergio Perez is now trying to pass Alonso. It's all kicking off for Alonso. He may be about to drop out of the points, but Alonso battling hard there, and there you go. I've got past Fernando Alonso, and so has Sergio Perez, and we both did it fairly cleanly, but that was bottom clenching stuff. I mean, trying to make a move into Copse is... ooh, and in fact, not Fernando Alonso, Nico Hülkenberg made a move on Ericsson, and they locked wheels. That must have been terrifying, especially as Ericsson has already spun out once around that part of the circuit at the 50% race. So, anyway, I mean, the point I should stress there is Hülkenberg passing Ericsson means that Hülkenberg is third in the Grand Prix. And what on earth is going on ahead? We've got Kvyat, and I think that's Verstappen getting involved in an incident, and they're off. Okay, well, I have no idea what happened there. Ericsson was caught up in that, so Ericsson is now in 7th place. But I've made up a couple of positions due to Kvyat and Verstappen. I mean, I don't know, they took out... I mean, we saw polystyrene flying everywhere, but that was incredibly weird. I mean, we're now going to pass Marcus Ericsson, and that was incredibly easy, actually. I mean, Ericsson, actually, not only has he got the car disadvantage, he's also got the tyre disadvantage. Now let's take a look at this. So going around Stowe, Verstappen goes down the inside of Kvyat. Now what on earth? Oh right, okay. Kvyat wanted to go in the pits. And he didn't care that Verstappen was there blocking him. Kvyat wanted to go in the pits, and he was going to try and go in the pits. So actually, Max Verstappen, I mean, he's got caught up in a lot of incidents around Silverstone just in this video, but this one was not his fault. I mean, he just... wrong place, wrong time. And Kvyat, so desperate to go into the pits. And that was, I mean, stupidity, to be perfectly honest. And Max Verstappen, I really do feel bad for him. I'm not sure if there's any damage to either car. If there is, it's minor. But Max Verstappen, he was ahead of me. He was going to score some decent points. He was high up the field in a quick car. And now look, he's pretty much last. He's got a Mercedes car just behind. I think that's Lewis Hamilton, who's about to pass him into Abbey. So Max Verstappen's race has just derailed completely like that. And now we've got Stoffel Van Dorn is passing a Sauber. I mean, this is remarkable. So we've got Van Dorn passing, I believe that's Verline. We've got Grosjean passing the pair of them. There's myself just behind. So we've got easy pickings here in the form of Pascal Verline. Bit late on the brakes there. Was able to just about avoid contact with Van Dorn. But Van Dorn, another driver who, especially at a power circuit like this, should be fairly easy pickings. And as you saw briefly on the screen, Kvyat was able to enter the pits this lap. So there you go. He was able to do it without taking someone out this time. And there you go. Passed off with Van Dorn just about 20 seconds later. Exit towards the end of the Wellington Straight. Simple move. So, here we go. We've got towards the back of the field, Alonso slipped his way down, Verstappen crashed his way down towards the back. And Fernando Alonso, he did so well in Abu Dhabi, which is kind of stupid. He did so well, which means he's obviously going to do poorly here. And Fernando Alonso, I mean, yeah, sure, he was slipping towards the back rapidly, but he did not deserve to be taken out, and that is, genuinely, that is the 4th incident Max Verstappen has been involved in this video. And that one, I mean, I don't think there was any malicious intent behind it, but Verstappen, that one was his fault. I mean, I'd have to say of the Verstappen incidents, of all 4 of them, 2 of them were partially his fault, but were minor, such as that one. One of them was stupid, and one of them was, well, completely not even his fault. Anyway, we're coming into the pits on, well, this lap 6 now, as we just passed the start-finish line in the pits. And now we saw in Abu Dhabi, I lost a lot of positions coming into the pits, but, well, pretty much everyone was in the pits at the same time. We had 14 drivers pitting at the same time, so it was chaos in the pit lane, but, well, there's no safety car, so, no, we're getting a bit more of a even spread of drivers pitting in on different laps. So I've been able to retain my position just behind, or no, sorry, just ahead of Sergio Perez. And we've got some other drivers coming into the pit, so here's where it all gets a bit muddy. I've been able to repass Stoffel Van Dorn, and coming out ahead of me is Kevin Magnussen. So, yeah, I mean, this is pretty much where I expected to be, with the Hasses, with Sergio Perez. The midfield cars, essentially. The only difference, well, the real problem is Silverstone's a power circuit. Magnussen up ahead is a Ferrari-engined car. Perez behind is in a Mercedes-engined car, and as many people pointed out in the previous episode, the Toro Rosso is Renault-powered, of course. So, thanks to people for pointing that out, and it does mean that we've now got, well, the Toro Rosso car's got less power than I thought. Now, here's the thing. The race leader, Lance Stroll, coming into the pits, taking off the super softs, fitted on the softs. That's fairly standard, but he was in the lead. He's coming to the pits later than his teammate, and I think he's come out. We can't see anyone around him, so I think he might have kept the race lead. No, he hasn't. No, Massa is in first, and there was a Renault ahead of Lance Stroll. That means that both Massa and Hulkenberg have got the jump on Stroll. They came into the pits earlier, and they're ahead. As you can see, look, both Saubers are still out there having started on the soft tyres. But look, Massa, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Raikkonen, do not ask me how he got into 6th and net 4th. Raikkonen, I mean, in the same vein that Massa gained places by coming into the pits early, I guess Raikkonen did the same thing, but Raikkonen has magicked his way into a net 4th place. That's remarkable, but it's not just Raikkonen. We have got some other top team drivers. I mean, there's Valtteri Bottas battling with Sergio Perez. Let's not forget Perez was just behind me, and Bottas just dispatched of Perez. I mean, there was a bit of contact there, but that was incredibly easy, which is slightly worrying because the Force India car is more powerful and it's a better car. And if Perez couldn't defend from Bottas, how on earth am I supposed to? Luckily, we've only got 4 laps left to go this Grand Prix, and in fact, whoa, Valtteri Bottas. Yes, sure, I could sort of see in my mirrors vaguely that Bottas was coming, but I turned into Abby, not intending. I had no idea that a Mercedes was going to be that close. And Bottas, ballsy move, and he's up into 7th. That was remarkable. But as you can see, Lewis Hamilton's just behind in 8th. And yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm not sure. I might have gone early on the brakes there. I mean, certainly, much like at the 50% race, there's no point trying to battle with the Mercedes. I mean, Bottas, that's the thing, is Bottas passed me in Abbey, and I had no idea that he was going to do that move. So that could have ended up, you know, with a massive collision between us two. Thankfully, it didn't. Thankfully, I left space there. I mean, anyway, this is where it's getting interesting. Lance Stroll, of course, lost the race lead by staying out too late. Raikkonen, I don't know what lap he pitted, but I wish I pitted on the same lap as him, because Raikkonen, he's just passed Lance Stroll for 3rd, and come the final few laps, I think we've got 2-3 laps left to go to the Grand Prix. Raikkonen's just passed Hulkenberg for 2nd, and there's Massa just there. And the Williams is a fairly quick car. I mean, yeah, sure, we saw the Williams easily dispatch the Sauber, but here's the thing, as the tables have turned, the Williams is no longer the quickest car battling for the lead, it's now the slowest. The Renault is about the same, but the Ferrari, Kimi Raikkonen, charging his way through the field. I mean, Raikkonen's one to watch out for the race lead, but in fact, I've got my own battles to watch out for here, as I've got someone side by side. I mean, Sergio Perez, he just will not give it a rest around left field, leaving a bit of space out on the inside. Not a car's width of space, God no, but Perez, he's been waiting to make a move. I mean, he passed me on the first lap of the Grand Prix. I passed him, I think, on the second lap. And now Sergio Perez, he's the quicker car, the Mercedes engine. And that was another ballsy move. I have to say, the AI have made a lot of good moves into Stowe, into Copse that time. Abby, you have to perfectly calculate a move into those corners. I mean, we got a replay of it here. Yes, I left space because if I didn't, I would have taken both myself and Perez out of the Grand Prix. But credit to the AI because they have been very aggressive. I mean, to make a move into Stowe, Copse especially, that's, yeah. The AI aren't timid. But anyway, I mean, this is the strange thing, as I do not know how this has happened, but at the end of the hangar straight, into Stowe, Raikkonen's locked up both wheels. I mean, I was talking as if it's a foregone conclusion that Raikkonen's taken the race lead. Well, he has. He's millimetres ahead of Felipe Massa. I think he's got the race lead. Yeah, I think so. There's no Williams front wing in sight. And Kimi Raikkonen has taken the race lead. Now, let's hope there's no reliability issues. As we saw in the 50% race, I beat Kimi Raikkonen in the 50% race due to reliability issues. And in fact, it's probably those reliability issues that helped out Raikkonen here. Because, of course, he lost points in that race, which meant he was in a better position to score points this race because of the reverse grid championship. It does get incredibly... Well, Catch 22, as I've already said, it I think perfectly sums up this championship and the rules. But anyway, I mean, just... Massa, to be fair... Raikkonen locked up heading into Stowe. Massa saw an opportunity. He went for it. I mean, bit of argy-bargy. He was going to lose the battle, but, I mean, I really wish, as someone who produced and edited and raced in this video, I wish I could tell you how Raikkonen did what he did, but I honestly don't know. And also something which I didn't see coming, Daniel Ricciardo passing me. I had no idea the Red Bulls were that close. I had no idea he was that close. And honestly, the final lap, I thought once Perez passed me, oh, that was it. And then suddenly on the final lap, Ricciardo's just there, and I'm out of the points, which, yeah, sure, I'm in a Renault-powered car. I probably shouldn't have expected much around Silverstone, but still. Anyway, round the final corner, round Club, Kimi Raikkonen is going to win the reverse grid race around Silverstone. And that's... As I said, I hate to sound so ill-informed, but I have no idea how he did it. It's remarkable. But this is more remarkable. This is the final lap of the Grand Prix. I thought Massa had second wrapped up. Then he passed Stroll. I thought he had the lead wrapped up. Second I thought was guaranteed. It's not guaranteed because Nico Hülkenberg on the final lap around Stowe has just passed Felipe Massa. And Nico Hülkenberg is going to take second at Silverstone in this reverse grid race. Felipe Massa in third. Williams, this race really derailed for them. Lance Stroll cost points for a poor strategy. Massa should have done better. Well, who knows whether I should have done better. 11th in the end for myself. But to be fair, I am not the focal point of this championship. Yes, I am competing in it, but I am one driver amongst 20, and I'm not exactly in, you know, a car, especially around a power circuit. You wouldn't expect me to do well here. Kvyat, let's not forget, Kvyat didn't even qualify in the top 15. So this car was not suited to this circuit at all. But we're about to see, I mean, a sight that we were not guaranteed to see, and that is a Ferrari on the podium. And in fact, Lewis Hamilton, of course, Lewis Hamilton passed me. Mercedes did remarkably well. Look, there's Lewis Hamilton in 5th. So that means Hamilton took pole position, he won the 50% race and came 5th in the reverse grid race. Hamilton, driver of the Grand Prix weekend. But look at this podium. Kimi Raikkonen looks content, I would say. I mean, he's not smiling by any means, but what would you expect from Kimi? You got Hülkenberg in 2nd. That is the second place finish in a reverse grid race for a Renault driver. Palmer did it in Abu Dhabi. Hülkenberg's done it here. And look, he looks elated to get a podium finish. And Massa, he looks pretty chuffed to get 3rd as well. So there you go. A slightly hectic race. I mean, look, Raikkonen qualified in 16th. Well, he started the race, sorry, in 16th. I mean, how did he win? I do not know. But Bottas finished 4th. Hamilton 5th. The Mercedes drivers appeared out of nowhere. Raikkonen jumped me in the pits. and I don't even know how. That's the remarkable thing. Kvyat down in 15th. Not really a fair comparison because Kvyat did take himself out of the race. Well, he wanted to pit early. I mean, it was, well, we saw the pit incident with Kvyat. But anyway, here's the championship standings according to, well, you know, the whole game, the qualifying races, yada yada. Hamilton's dominating ahead of Sebastian Vettel. I'll be perfectly honest, this championship isn't massively interesting to me. I mean, because the points in qualifying I'm not a massive fan of. I mean, this championship is so difficult to read into. I mean, it looks, on the face of it, fairly standard actually compared to a normal championship. Because of course there's points in qualifying and points for the 50% race, so the points for the reverse grid races are only a third of the story. But I did mock up this. Now this is the Drivers' Championship with the points that were scored during the reverse grid races, nothing else. And as you can see, in the Reverse Grid Race Championship, Kimi Raikkonen and Esteban Ocon are joint leading with 25 points apiece. Ocon winning the Abu Dhabi Reverse Grid Race and then Raikkonen winning this one around Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton Mr. Consistent in the Reverse Grid Championship. He finished 4th in Abu Dhabi and 5th here in Britain, and he's been rewarded with 3rd in the championship. Then you've got the 2 Renault drivers, and in fact they're also the 2 drivers that have finished 2nd in the reverse grid races, Palmer in Abu Dhabi and then Hülkenberg here in Silverstone. Bottas has done quite well, he's in 6th in the championship. Then you got Massa, Fernando Alonso definitely doing much better under these reverse grid race conditions, 8th in the championship, of course thanks to his 3rd place finish in Abu Dhabi. Kevin Magnussen, a driver who's been fairly under the radar, 9th place in the Drivers' Championship, 14 points. He is still fairly close even to the championship leaders, so Kevin Magnussen, one to watch out for. He is a dark horse actually. Definitely the surprise of the Reverse Grid Championship. I mean, I didn't know he had done this well until I made the table. Then you've got Ricciardo, Grosjean, myself, Lance Stroll, and then on the second page, you've got Sergio Perez in 14th. Sebastian Vettel, though, is all the way down in 15th. And I have no idea how. Sebastian Vettel, he's been completely outdone by his teammate and also completely outdone by both Mercedes drivers. Vettel, we saw in Abu Dhabi he was held up in traffic, so Vettel kind of a victim of circumstance there, just because before everyone started passing Lance Stroll, Vettel wasn't too far behind Hamilton, and I think it was just a combination of the massive train that formed and the fact that Abu Dhabi is not a massively easy circuit to overtake. But then you've got Silverstone, this very Grand Prix. I don't know what happened to Vettel. I really don't. He just never turned up. Raikkonen mysteriously found his way towards the front, and I think in the same vein that Raikkonen pitted on the perfect lap, Sebastian Vettel, obviously he couldn't pit on the same lap, so he was just screwed over by strategy. In the same vein that we sort of saw Stroll lost out massively to Massa, I think it sort of happened with Vettel and Raikkonen, but because both of those guys started towards the back, Vettel must have got caught up in traffic, Raikkonen didn't. I think Vettel, once again, to a certain extent, was just a victim of circumstance. But then you've got Stoffel Van Dorn, Max Verstappen, surprisingly, Daniel Kvyat, and both Sauber drivers who haven't scored any points so far. And in the Constructors' Championship, well, this one's very strange actually, because for me, the most recent Reverse Grid Race Championship I did was on Formula 1 2001, and back then, the top 2 teams were Benetton and BAR, and now it's Renault and Mercedes. And if you go back far enough, Renault, if you go back to 2001, they were Benetton. In fact, in 2001, Renault owned Benetton. And Mercedes, if you go back far enough, back through Braun, Honda, you get to BAR. And yeah, sure, there's basically no common connections between Mercedes now and BAR back then, apart from the factory, but it's strange that it is essentially the same 2 teams at the top. It's very strange, but Mercedes are just about leading the Constructors' Championship with 38 points. Renault are on 36. They're noticeably ahead of the other teams. You've got Force India in 3rd, Ferrari in 4th, so strangely, the 2 teams that have won a race in this Reverse Grid Race Championship are neither of the top 2 teams in the Constructors' Championship. Haas aren't too far behind Ferrari, and in fact Williams aren't too far behind Haas. Williams only 1 point off. Both teams are in the low 20 points, so in fact they're still fairly close to the top teams of Mercedes and Renault. It's still fairly close in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren are kind of in their own middle ground on 15 points. Red Bull have been disappointing. In fact, both Red Bull owned teams haven't been particularly stellar in this championship so far. Both teams have got single figure points. Although to be fair, they're still doing better than Sauber, and Sauber, well, if you look at it, it's just a normal championship for them because they're still lost in the Constructors' Championship and they haven't scored a single point. Well anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time for the final round in the GP Endurance League. And also more specifically and interestingly, the final round in this Reverse Grid Race Championship. And the venue for the final race will be the Circuit of the Americas.